Christian faith and fiction, inspirational reading suggestions, along with chats about the Christian faith. The following episode is an audio version of a video that I recorded for my YouTube channel, Christian Faith and Fiction. If you would like to watch the video rather than listen to the audio, you can do so by clicking the link in the show notes. Please do share your thoughts by commenting either on the video or on the relevant blog post, links in the show notes. Remember, the 5th of November, Gunpowder, Treason and Plot. I see no reason why Gunpowder Treason should ever be forgot. Hey, it's Lou from Christian Faith and Fiction. Today I thought it'd be fun to come up with a new book tag to do on this channel, and every 5th of November in the UK we celebrate Guy Fawkes Night, Bonfire Night, Fireworks Night, call it what you may. It goes back to, I think, 1605 when Guy Fawkes and other people tried to blow up Parliament. They were caught. He was caught down underneath the Houses of Parliament with a load of barrels of gunpowder, and then they were executed and various things. But ever since then, there have been celebrations on the 5th of November to celebrate the saving of Parliament and saving of the government from being blown up. I have lots of memories of celebrating, mostly to do with fireworks and a bit of bonfires and toffee apples and sausages and jacket potatoes and all that kind of thing. So it's always usually a good time of year because it gets dark quite early and it's nice to go and see some fireworks. I can see them out of my bedroom window quite often these days, so I don't even have to leave the house. So I've come up with 10 book prompts to find books for, and they are all around the theme of Guy Fawkes Day, Guy Fawkes Night, and this kind of season. So the first ones are following along the rhyme that we learnt at school. Number 1, remember the most memorable book that you have read. I'm going to choose Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers for this one. I read it quite a long time ago, years and years ago, and it was probably the book that a lot of Christians read, a Christian fiction book, when you're sort of starting out, and that was the first book that I read and introduced me to the idea of a Christian fiction genre. It is a retelling of the story of Hosea in American historical time period. I'm not exactly sure of the time period. It sort of feels quite early on to me in this sort of West. I don't know, but it feels like quite early on in American history, and it is, it's quite a dramatic story. It's quite a heart-wrenching story, and definitely it stayed with me. That's one of the books that I actually do remember a lot of the plot from, whereas many books I've moved on and I've forgotten what that book was about. That one has stayed with me. Number 2, Gunpowder, a book with an explosive beginning. I'm going to choose The Italian Ballerina for this book by Christy Cambron. This is set in the World War II. A lot of it is set in Rome and following different perspectives throughout the war, before, during the war, and then in present day as well. So it's quite a complicated book, but right at the beginning, the prologue starts. Never open a locked door unless you're certain death doesn't lurk behind it. Fine advice if you weren't being hunted down by a swarm of Nazi soldiers. And the prologue ends with a child's scream, a single gunshot to pierce the air, and the telltale thump to the tile as a body fell. And then that prologue starts like right at the end of the story, and then you don't get to find out what's actually happened until near the end of the book. So it gives you like this a spoiler sort of taster of what's coming in the story, and it's, when these Nazis are attacking them, chasing them, something's happened, and then you don't find out till much later on. So yeah, it starts with a bang, definitely. Number 3, Treason, a book about betrayal. I couldn't really do this tag without mentioning Fawkes by Nadine Brandes. This is a fantasy kind of retelling of the Guy Fawkes story, but it's like a sort of historical reality like alternative historical reality, but with fantasy and magic to do with the masks that they wear and the colours. And yeah, it's slightly complicated to explain, but it following that story, and you are trying to work out who might betray who. There are choices of people making choices whether to betray the people in their families or the people on their sides or not, for their own belief systems. And it's following Guy Fawkes' sort of kind of fictional son. I'm not sure if they knew whether he had a son or not in real life, but his son, who is caught up in the whole sort of scenario and things that are going on. Number 4, plot. A book with an iconic plot line. I'm going to choose Pride and Prejudice for this one, just because I think it's such a well-known book throughout the whole of the world. The plot line is so sort of well known. If people haven't read the book, many people have seen a version of it in the film or TV, and they've heard of it if they haven't read it or seen it. So that's quite iconic. I could also pick the book that I'm reading currently is Fairest of Heart by Karen Whittemire, which is a retelling of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It is, I won't say too much about it, I'll talk about it in my book reviews videos coming up soon, but it is very close to the sort of the Disney version of Snow White in a sense, but it's retelling it in its own setting and story. So yeah, that's quite an iconic. I reckon that first sort of Disney movie of Snow White was pretty iconic, and it's been retold many times since then, and obviously it was before then. It was a classic fairy tale, so that story, that iconic plotline is sort of carried on going and is still being reused and reimagined today. Number 5, Fireworks, a relationship with a lot of chemistry and sparks. The book that I've fairly recently read is The Cairo Curse by Pepper Basham. This is this series, Frederick and Grace, they definitely have a lot of sort of spark between the two of them. They find themselves in a relationship not by their own sort of choice, almost through circumstances, and they still having to kind of get to know each other. Yeah, so they're sparking off each other, and that's a relationship I enjoyed more so in this one than the first one, even, because the first one was almost too much chemistry going on in that one for me. Another book that I think had chemistry in the relationship is Far Side of the Sea by Kate Breslin. I seem to remember, it's been a while since I've read this book, and probably time for me to reread soon, but it is another a wartime, First World War time historical book, romance, as well as kind of spies, adventure, mystery. Yeah, the characters of Colin and Johanna, I felt like I could remember them being quite sparky off of each other, and there being chemistry in that one. So yeah, I'll mention that one as well. Number 6, Rocket, the best book you've read so far this autumn. I'm going to choose Dream of Kings by Sharon Hink for this book. I gave it 5 stars. I will talk more about it again in my wrap-up of book reviews, but it is a Christian fantasy story. It is a retelling of Joseph from the Book of Genesis, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, you know, that Joseph. And it is set in a fantasy world. It is fairly low magic, and it does have some supernatural elements to it, but it follows fairly closely, again, the story of Joseph. It has completely its own story as well, but I really, really enjoyed that book. I thought it was fantastic, and yeah, I definitely would read more from that author in the future. Number 7, A Damp Squib, a book that promised much but didn't deliver. A couple of books I'll mention. One is The Enlightenment of Bees by Rachel Linden, and the other is The Sweet Life by Suzanne Woods Fisher. Both of these, I felt like the content wasn't quite there for a Christian fiction book. Had stuff in it that I wasn't so happy about, not so much in the clean sense, but in sense of it just felt a little bit new agey, a little stuff in there that I just wasn't comfortable with. So I was really disappointed with those books. Both of those I had read, wanting them to be really, really good contemporary romance, and they just fizzled out for me. Number 8, Bonfire, a book series that burned brightly from start to finish. I'm going to choose the Mark of the Raven series by Morgan L. Bussey for this one. It's trilogy, it is Christian fantasy, it is magical gifts, so more supernatural rather than wizardy magic, and it is following a main character who has the ability to walk in other people's dreams, and she has to she finds out that her family uses that gift to assassinate other people, and she has to make a decision whether she wants to follow in their footsteps or to take a different choice and put her own life at risk. This was a fantastic series. I loved all 3 books. I felt like it progressed all the way throughout the whole of the series, and was definitely on fire all the way through for me. So that was a really good one. I do have them, but I didn't want to dig them out. They're right at the bottom of a pile over there. And my lights were going to keep falling off the shelf if I keep on pulling out books. But yes, they were a fantastic series. Number 9, Toffee Apple, a sweet and sour story. I have chosen The Lady and the Lionheart by Joanne Biscoff for this prompt. It is a while since I've read this one, a couple of years I think, but it is a historical fiction, Christian fiction again. And it is following a nurse and a ringmaster from a circus whose lives collide with each other, and there is romance. There is also a lot of past heartache that they have to go through. So there's really sweet romance, but there's also some really sort of heavier topics that's dealt with in there. So there's a real mix of the different like sweet and the sour themes going on in that book. Number 10, Penny for the Guy. This is something I should explain. This is something that happened in the UK. They dressed up, made sort of like models of Guy Fawkes, and then paraded them around town, raising money for charity. And then, well, some people like threw them on the bonfire to burn them. So that's where this tag comes from if you don't understand that one. So Penny for the Guy, name a book which you will be donating to charity. I read earlier this year, The Socialite by Janelle Jasilski, and I started the first sort of chapter of The Brilliance of Stars by Janelle Jasilski, and this book, I kind of enjoyed it, but I think I remember it being, the romance was a little bit more, in terms of physical, it was a bit more focused on the physical than I particularly liked. I don't remember there being much Christian content in there, and then I started this one and it seemed like it's going to be exactly the same. So they're both set in the war. This is World War II, this is World War One. Yeah, I really loved The Ice One by Janelle Jasilski. That was a really great book by her, but these two not for me really. So I will be donating these ones to my local charity shop. So I'm basically going to tag everybody who's watching this. If you want to do this tag, go ahead and do it. Please do tag me, and then I'll be able to see what your answers are. So you can do it on here, on YouTube, on any other social media platforms, or you can answer it down in the comments of this video and tell me what your answers are to the prompts. I'll put them down in the description so you can go back and check over those. And I'm really interested to see what your answers, your suggestions are for these prompts. I hope you found it really fun to watch, and I hope you're having a great autumn time season reading and spending time eating nice food and staying warm and reading books. So I hope you're having a great time. I hope you're all well, and until next time, God bless. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Christian Faith and Fiction podcast. If you would like more information, you can click the link in the description. Don't forget to subscribe on your podcast app to make sure you catch the next episode.